welcome back to another Broken Banners Battle Report. Sorry we missed our last release. Technical difficulties are now behind us as we blaze forward towards the new year. Quick announcement though, I'm super excited to share that we are going to be collaborating with Activate Pivot Charge in the future. We're going to be showcasing their charge list on our channel, and the first should be coming out as our next release. Check out the link below to give their podcast a listen. It's amazing. These guys do such a good job of saying so much in a nice, compact, 20 to 30 minute form. These guys are a channel after my own heart. For this current battle report, though, I'm going to be bringing my special Cotter Pike list against Rickard Karstark. Cotter Pike is one of the strongest commanders in Night's Watch right now, and looking at his cards, I'm sure you can imagine why. I'm putting him in his natural home, Sworn Brothers. Cotter's attachment card helps get Sworn Brothers into the fight and keep him there, which is going to be helped out by his cards, helping him to deal out maximum damage in the hard-hitting unit of Sworn Brothers. After having played a lot of Helldivers 2 in the past few weeks, I've decided to bring the Orbital Shock impact strategy to Cotter Pike's forces, putting Cold Hands and Satin in a unit of Ranger Hunters. Ranger Hunters are very squishy, but they kill anything as squishy as them. They're fast, mobile, and can deliver a fatal 1-2 punch that is especially lethal in the flank or rear, giving negative modifiers to your victim saves. Cold Hands is going to let you outflank these guys in deep with Pathfinder to make sure no terrain short of a palisades getting in your way. Satin brings Commander's Vassal, which is going to guarantee some added bonuses from the Night's Watch deck and, more importantly, Assault Orders. Being able to charge, retreat, and shoot all off of a single NCU zone after an outflank is a very difficult tactic to deal with, especially if you can support it. I have Stormcrow mercs with a senior builder as a point sitter, enabling my Scorpion to have the Overwatch attachment. That's going to give me control over my opponent's positioning to help set up my Ranger Hunters. For NCUs, I have Aemon for sustained healing and Dennis Mallister for sustained damage. Hopefully Yorwick is there to help soften up enemies to make sure that I can deliver those devastating alpha strikes from both Cotter and Cold Hands. Tom is going to be playing Rickard Karstark in Umber Great Axes. These guys shred through almost every defense, and Rickard brings extra attacks, fueled by slaughter, and additional sustain for them to stay in the fight and keep swinging. Sound familiar? Backing them up are Stark Sworn Swords with Bran and Hodor, and the dog Summer, Bran's protector. They're effective point sitters that help give Tom activation advantage to make the most of his aggression, but they do have some significant bite themselves, with Bran and Hodor bringing that auto wound and Summer having a pseudo sentinel. Karstark Spearmen bring another instance of the Karstark keyword to the battlefield, and with the Sworn Sword Captain, they have a pretty impressive amount of grind for their point cost, being able to weather most charges while having a lot of damage to dish out if they're starting engaged. Outriders round up the list to make sure all these infantry are getting where they want to be and threatening any out-of-position enemies. Arya and Sansa are staples of the Starks, with Roderick giving some solid damage consistency by bringing rerolls and vulnerable token generation. These two aggressive armies are going to face off and honed and ready. Apologies in advance that so much is cut off in this video. My camera has been part of the technical difficulties we're struggling with, but I think I got it fixed for all games going forward, so I cut off the round counter to smooth that out a bit. We're doing player pick terrain, and Tom is going to start off by putting a low wall towards the center of the battlefield. I'm going to respond by putting stakes on the opposite end, mirroring it with regards to the points. Forest then gets put down near the center objective, and I put down a bog on the objective near the wall. The idea being that with all this flank-heavy terrain, my hunters won't have an issue charging someone, but he will have a hard time getting away or trying to retaliate. Tom is going to win the roll-off for who gets to decide turn order to deployment, and he's going to choose deployment side, as most people do. He chooses his side and makes me deploy first. I'm going to outflank my Ranger Hunters, and he's going to take his Great Umber axes, and he's going to put them straight down the center, because, man, they just really want to smack someone in the face. I then take my senior builder Stormcrow mercs and put them across from the bog, ready to run on down. Tom is then going to take his Karstark Spearmen and put them opposite the Stormcrow mercs. I'm going to put my Scorpion in between the mercs and the edge of the map. That way they can tuck on in between where the castle wall is and be safe from just about everything. Tom's going to put his Outriders next to the Great Axes to support them and give them the cover and the attack repo that they need, and I'll put the Sworn Brothers further away from the Outriders because I'm not going to make it any easier for him than I need to. Tom then gets to put his last few deployments, and he's going to put his Stark Sworn Swords all the way on the opposite end of the map with Summer nearby. I get to choose turn order, and I'm going to choose to go first. That way I can outflank off the start of the second round. I'm going to take Dennis Mallister, putting him onto the horses so I can move up my ballista, trying to get them into Overwatch range, and I'm going to put his influence on the Sworn Brothers. Tom is then going to put Roderick onto swords to deny me them, and he's going to make my mercenaries vulnerable. I'm then going to activate Maester Aemon, put him onto letters, and panic the Karstark spears. Tom passes with Arya, and then I put Othel onto bags, shooting the spears, and I get really lucky between the panic token and the hits, and I deal a whopping 6 wounds. Right off the top, those Karstark spearmen are looking really juicy for just about anything that can get at them. Tom tries to even it out a little bit by putting Sansa onto the crown and zapping my mercenaries. Were it not for fires that burn against the cold, I would have taken 3 wounds, but the reroll gets me into a pass, and I take nothing. Suck it. My activation, I'm going to go ahead and maneuver up my Scorpion to get them into that Overwatch range. I'm able to narrowly avoid that bog, and that's going to make sure that I get into a position that's going to let me Overwatch shoot those spears if they try and get onto their point. I'm not really trying to kill those Karstark spearmen right now with the ballista. I mean, if I could, that's awesome, but I'm just trying to keep them there. That way my Ranger Hunters can kill them. Tom, on his turn, is going to move his dog on up to get them towards the stakes. Start of my turn, Tom is going to tactical reposition his Outriders to get a little bit more control over the center of the battlefield, and I'm going to try and reestablish that by marching up my Sworn Brothers, attaching Shields of the Realms of Men to them, and positioning them facing down the center. With the auto 6 off of Reckless Heroism, everybody that can threaten me can be threatened by Cotter Pike, except for the Outriders. The Outriders are unique because being speed 6 and carrying their own attack repo, they've got a very considerable threat range, and even if they don't do much damage on the charge, even with ambush, giving them a bit of a buff, they have a threatening ability to lock me down and give him the position and the time to get his infantry to collapse on my Sworn Brothers. The Outriders can also easily spin around wherever they need to, depending on where the Hunters are going to outflank, so that entire side of the table is locked away from them. I then activate my last unit, my Stormcrow mercenaries, move them up towards the point and onto the bog. Tom is going to swift reposition his Karstark spearmen to get them away from all that nonsense I've been shooting him with, take his Sworn Swords, park them onto a point near Summer, guarded and protected in case they do get attacked from the flank by the Ranger Hunters. He's also going to move up his Umber Great Axes towards the center. Tom's able to really choose his positioning at this point pretty easily because being 2 activations down essentially, because I'm outflanking unit and he has activation advantage, he can kind of do whatever he wants. I didn't use a pass token because I really just didn't see much of a point in it. I'm just going to be delaying it a minor amount of time. It would have just been the Sworn Swords to activate it. Tom has control of the game the first round. The only reason I'm able to be as dominant as I am is because of Othel. And with that, the Karstark Spearmen are going to get the hell out of there because they have no business being so close. But unfortunately for him...
Helldivers to Hellpods. Repeat, Helldivers to Hellpods. Hellpod launch initiated.
My Ranger Hunters are going to outflank into the far enemy side of the battlefield, staring right in the flank of the Karstark Spearmen. Now, Karstark Spearmen do have stand your ground, so I wouldn't normally be getting charge rerolls against them, but with Dennis Mallister, I'm pretty confident I'm going to be able to do a considerable amount of damage. Tom's going to try and stand his ground, putting Arya onto the bags, and then the start of my turn, he's going to use an Arya token to maneuver them, and he's just going to move them 5 inches away, which is going to make it difficult, not impossible, not even unlikely, but a little bit more difficult for my Ranger Hunters to get in on them. Predictably enough, I do in fact have Assault Orders in hand, and I'm still pretty confident I'm going to be able to send these guys into the Netherworld. I'm going to put Dennis Mallister onto the horses, influencing my Hunters so that they're still getting rerolls when they charge him, and I roll, and I'm 1 short. Tom is going to try and take advantage of the situation, and playing Devastating Impact, the spears are going to charge into my Hunters, and by the end of the attack, I'm going to have taken 5 wounds, which is enough to drop me a rank. Thankfully, after the Ranger Hunter quote-unquote nerf, they're throwing 6 dice on their melee and 6 dice on their ranged. So it's only a 1 dice drop off of each. It's really not that bad. But even with all of that, I have Aemon's, so I'm just going to put Aemon onto the swords. He's going to heal them up 2, which gets me back up to 3 ranks, and I'm going to play Sword in the Darkness to put a vulnerable token onto him. I don't get the panic because he's already activated, but I still get a pretty big attack off of it with the Deadness Influence and the vulnerable token. So I stab him, I step away, and now I'm going to go ahead and shoot the Karstark Spearman with the classic Ranger Hunter combo. Granted, I usually prefer to do it off the charge, but whatever. They still haven't activated, and I'm able to blow them up, and I kill the Karstark Spearman. At this point, I imagine Tom has to be in panic mode. It's the start of the round. He was able to get the activation out of them before they died, but that was 6 points down the drain, and he got nothing for it. So he's going to go ahead and activate Summer, and he's just going to break those stakes. I'm going to Oathel shoot the great axes off the letters, deal a few wounds. Tom's going to crown zap my Stormcrow Mercs, and they are okay. Stormcrow Mercs march up and sit on that point where hopefully they'll sit for the rest of the game. Tom moves his Outriders, and they're going to go sit on a point to try and lure me out. My turn, I'm planning on repositioning my Ranger Hunters. I don't plan on charging with them, but Tom's going to go ahead and play Taunt. And I decide, screw it. At this point, I'm pretty far ahead, and I can dip on out if something goes wrong. What's the worst that can possibly happen? In this charge, I actually managed to land. So I'm going to get on in there, and it's a unit that I can get an advantage for hitting in the flank. With Malister giving me a token, I'm able to do a ton of damage off that. Tom's going to play Karstark Retribution. And at first, I kind of dismiss it because, whatever, I'm retreating. What the hell are you going to do? And I forget one of the most fundamental parts of the game. He gets a free pivot after I retreat from him since I don't have elusive escape. So Tom's then going to go ahead and charge me in the face. But again, I'm like, all right, whatever. It's 4 dice. I was already saving on 6s. How bad can it be? I fires to auto pass this one because I am technically my commander's unit because I've got commander's vassal. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. And then Tom heals 4 wounds. And I start realizing what this list is capable of. And Cotter Pike, who is ready to decimate the Great Axes, is no longer in range. So I'm going to have to march him up and get him in position. Scorpion's going to take a pot shot at the dog and miss everything, and that will be the end of the round. My Mercs are going to get what's coming to them, and they're going to take 4 wounds off of scoring, and Tom's swords are only
He's going to influence my Ranger Hunters.
But I get to go first, so I'm going to go ahead and activate Dennis Malister
Realign
onto
like
the
that for the
swords,
attack.
influencing the Ranger Hunters again, and I'm going to go ahead and make an attack. Playing Take the Black to heal myself up a little bit more, get back up to 3 ranks, and I'm going to scooch on off to the side. At this point, I feel dominant. I feel like I'm in control. The Great Axes are a blink away from death. He's already lost one of his units. I'm set up on the other side of the board. I really don't see this going too poorly anytime soon. So I decide to get a little risky, and I'm going to take a pot shot off on the dog, and I'm going to try and shoot it in the rear. Because, hey, maybe I'll get lucky. If I get a few hits, he's saving on 6s. That's going to be it for the dog, and that's definitely it for the game. As it is, Tom, I think, is still in desperation mode. He gets a little lucky on that, and I roll very few hits, and the dog's only going to take 2 wounds. Tom's going to play Swift Reposition, and he's going to get the Great Axes to charge on in, and again, he's going to deal enough damage to rank me, and with Karstark Retribution and Fueled by Slaughter, he's going to get to heal 4 off of this. I feel kind of bad for Tom, though, because he's only throwing 4 dice with his commander in an elite unit, and he's rolled a 1 on both of his charges, which is just insult to injury. He uses both of his Roderick tokens on these Great Axes attacks, and he never manages to get a full 4 hits. This was just a brutal game for Tom, and it's going to be over very shortly because, as you can see, I've got unactivated Ranger Hunters engaged with these Great Axes with the Dennis influence, and I've got Cotter Pike. He's healed up pretty significantly off of this, and I'm wondering if hitting with the Ranger Hunters is the right move at this point, because while I might be able to kill him with this, I also might not, and then I've just got Ranger Hunters on deep, Summer's unactivated, and they might just get cornered in and die, and I might actually just throw away the game at this point. So instead, I go for the safer bet, and I take my Sworn Brothers, and showing off to Tom how nice it is to have an auto 6 charge, I'm just going to use Reckless Heroism, take a few wounds, and charge him straight in the rear. Cotter Pike is going to be doing a ton of damage, throwing 7 dice, putting the vulnerable token on out, and in the rear, even having gone over a tree, that's going to be -3 to a 4-up unit. He's still saving on 6s with the +1 armor. and he's going to get sent to the moon after the vulnerable token. I don't even think he gets the panic test on that. At this point, we realize that's going to be it for the game. My Ranger Hunters are still unactivated, and that dog ain't going to do jack diddly. He doesn't know if I've got another assault orders in there, so who knows what left I'm going to be capable of, but what he is confident is that I'm just going to be able to outscore him and continue harassing him because all of his value units are gone, and he's just got a bunch of 4-6 units left. This was a really rough game for Tom. I really like what the Great Axes were capable of, especially with Rickard Karstark. I think if I wasn't playing such a maneuverable list, and if he didn't get so unlucky with the Karstark Spearmen, he might have been able to pull this away from me by being able to grind on out with the Great Axes and that disgusting amount of healing between Fueled by Slaughter and Karstark Retribution. That's not the game we played, though, and this has ended up being a short report and a shorter game, barely making it into round 3. But sometimes that's the name of the game. You can play well in between dice and just the nature of the enemy's list. It can absolutely obliterate you. One of the questions Tom and I talked about, though, after this game was it actually a good game? Tom generally doesn't get to play too much. He's very busy with his personal life, and I'm lucky to get a game in with him once every few months, and usually that's the only time he's playing. And I didn't really have much advice for him on what he could have done better to not get wiped off the board like that. So something I'd like you guys, the community members, the ones who are watching this video, go ahead and pop into the comments and say what Tom could have done better or differently with that list to not get absolutely obliterated. And tell me what I could have done better. I know that this list did well here, but it's only 1-for-1 right now. If you guys saw any blatant mistakes that could have been really bad based on something he could have done, I'm all ears. I really like this list, and I'd like to probably take it to a few tournaments, so any advice you guys could give, I would be grateful for. Thank you guys all for tuning in, and I really hope you guys tune in for our next battle report where we're working with Activate Pivot Charge. It's a great game. I played in it. It was it was way closer than it should have been. So, thank you all for tuning in, and until next time.